People think the biggest secrets in a marriage are affairs, lies, or financial betrayal. But mine was something no one could have imagined. For 10 long years after my wedding, I was still a virgin. And nobody, not my friends, not my family, not even my doctor, ever knew the truth. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because stories like this remind us how little we truly know about the lives people live behind closed doors. She was 55 years old now, sitting alone in her quiet living room in Portland, Oregon, staring at the soft morning light drifting through the blinds. Her name was Elaine Porter, and for most of her adult life, people thought she had a normal, stable marriage. 2 grown children, a long-term home, and a quiet life gave every impression of something ordinary, boring even, but ordinary was never her reality. Elaine had carried a secret for decades. A secret so private, so unusual, that she had mentally trained herself to pretend it never happened. To the outside world, she had lived a married life like everyone else. But in truth, the first 10 years of her marriage were built on silence and distance. She didn't come from a broken home. She wasn't forced into an arranged marriage. She wasn't deeply religious or socially oppressed. She grew up in a middle-class suburban neighborhood, had a college education, and married a man she believed she loved. His name was Michael. They met when she was 23 and he was 26. He wasn't arrogant, loud, or controlling. In fact, he was gentle, soft-spoken, respectful. The kind of man people described as safe. Not exciting, not wild, just safe. They married in the summer of 1994 in a small outdoor ceremony behind her parents' house in North Carolina. Everything about it was simple. No grand honeymoon, no big destination wedding, just family, vows, a rented tent, and homemade food. And that night, in a quiet hotel room her parents had booked as a gift, Elaine expected what every newly married woman expects: closeness, warmth, intimacy. Not because she was overly eager or naive, she just assumed it would happen the way it happens for everyone. But it didn't. Michael kissed her forehead, told her he was tired from the long day, and turned off the light. She thought maybe he was nervous, or shy, or just exhausted. She didn't make a big deal of it. She wasn't the kind of woman to force affection or demand a moment on command. But when it didn't happen the next night or the next week, she began to notice the pattern. He avoided the topic gently, respectfully, almost kindly. There was no anger in him, no dismissiveness. But any time the faintest chance of intimacy appeared, he would deflect, pretend to fall asleep, start a random conversation, or quietly leave the room with some excuse. And Elaine, being the understanding wife she thought she was supposed to be, didn't push him. At first, in the first few months, she convinced herself it was just new marriage nerves. Maybe he had anxiety. Maybe he needed time. Maybe he was just different. But weeks turned into months, and months into years. And by the time their 10th anniversary arrived, she was still sleeping beside a man who had never once touched her like a husband. And yet, no one knew. Not her best friend. Not her mother. Not even her doctor during yearly checkups. She lied by omission, smiled through silence, and held an entire decade of confusion inside her chest, not because she was afraid of him, but because she was afraid of what the truth might reveal about him, about her marriage, and worst of all, about herself. For the first year, Elaine didn't complain. She waited. She made excuses in her own head. Maybe he needs time. Maybe he wants it to be special. Maybe I'm not giving the right signals. Michael was kind. He laughed with her, made her coffee, fixed the car, paid bills, and asked about her day. To anyone watching, they were a perfectly normal young couple. But when night came and the door closed, distance took over. They slept in the same bed, but with a wall of silence between them. Sometimes their shoulders would touch, and Michael would subtly shift away, pretending to get comfortable. Elaine would feel a sting in her chest, but turn the other way and pretend it didn't matter. She never pushed him. Not once. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was terrified that if she did, she'd hear an answer she couldn't live with. When friends asked about kids, she laughed it off. Oh, we're just enjoying being married a little longer. When her mother whispered, so? Any news? She'd smile and change the topic. At family gatherings, people joked, you two better start soon. You're not getting younger. She would blush, pretend to be shy, and Michael would sip his drink in silence. No one suspected a thing. In their second year, One night, she finally gathered the courage to speak. They were in bed. Lights off. Quiet. She whispered, "Michael, do you not find me attractive?" His response was immediate, almost panicked. "What? No, God, no. You're beautiful. I love you. I don't know. I'm tired." The tone was gentle, loving even, but incomplete. Elaine stayed quiet again. Some nights she cried silently into her pillow, facing the edge of the bed so he wouldn't notice. She didn't know what was worse, being rejected or never being acknowledged, but she kept pretending. Michael wasn't abusive. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't dismissive. He was present in every other way: birthdays, road trips, dinners, family visits. They even bought a house in Oregon after moving from North Carolina for his job opportunity. People envied their stable marriage, but behind closed doors, she felt like a guest in her own body. One night, she tried to touch his hand gently under the covers. He pulled it away. Not harshly, not angrily, but reflexively, like someone dodging a hot stove. He didn't say a word. She stared into the dark and thought, he'd rather hurt me quietly than explain what's wrong. The next morning, she acted normal. Cooked breakfast, packed his lunch, kissed his cheek when he left. She hated herself for playing the role so well. During a routine checkup, her gynecologist casually asked, "How's intimacy? Any discomfort or dryness during intercourse?" Elaine's throat tightened. She forced a laugh. "Oh no, everything's fine. No issues." The doctor moved on. Inside, Elaine felt something shut down completely. That was the day she realized she was lying to cover a wound she never addressed. Their 10th wedding anniversary came with dinner at a quiet restaurant. They clinked glasses, ordered steak and risotto, talked about the weather. When they came home, he fell asleep on the couch watching TV. That night, she stood in the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror, and whispered, "I'm 33 years old. And I'm still a virgin. And I'm married." It was the first time she admitted it out loud. To herself, to the walls, to the silent house. Elaine didn't plan to confront him. She wasn't the kind of woman who screamed, accused, or threw ultimatums, but sometimes silence becomes so heavy that even breathing feels like betrayal. It happened one evening in late autumn, just a few weeks after their 10th anniversary. Michael came home late from work. He looked tired, distracted, a little distant, like always. Elaine was sitting at the dining table, not moving, not blinking, just waiting. There was no dinner on the stove, no TV on, no soft music. Nothing to hide behind. He paused in the doorway. "You okay?" Her voice came out small but steady. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly." Michael's shoulders tensed. "Okay," she swallowed, her hands cold. "Have I done something to make you not want me?" He froze, not in anger, not in confusion, but in fear. She continued, voice trembling. "We've been married 10 years, Michael. 10. And you've never—" Her voice broke. "You've never even tried." He didn't speak. She pressed on, her lips shaking. "I've spent a decade wondering if you're cheating on me, or if you're disgusted by me, or if I'm not enough woman for you. I've lied to doctors, to my mother, to myself. I can't keep pretending we're normal." Her eyes filled, but she didn't wipe them. He sat down slowly, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. For the first time in 10 years, she saw shame on his face. "I'm not cheating on you," he said softly. "Then what is it?" she whispered. "What have I done wrong?" He shook his head. "Nothing. You've done nothing wrong. Then why?" she asked, voice breaking with 10 years of silent pain. "Why am I still a virgin after being your wife for a decade?" Michael's lips parted, but no words came. She stared, waiting, terrified to hear what he'd finally say. And then his secret slipped out in a broken sentence. I'm afraid I can't do it, that I'll fail, that I'll embarrass myself, that I'll hurt you. I don't know how to, I was never, he couldn't even finish the sentence. Elaine blinked. "Are you saying you don't know how to be intimate with me?" He nodded once, barely perceptible. She stared at him, stunned. He took a weak breath and continued, voice raw with humiliation. "I've avoided it because I thought, if I tried and failed, you'd know I wasn't enough. Or you'd regret marrying me. Or you'd leave. So I stayed away. And the longer I waited, the worse it felt. Elaine just stood still, 10 years of heartbreak. Because her husband was terrified of failing. Not unfaithful, not cruel, not disinterested, not disgusted, just afraid, and instead of trusting her, he let fear build a decade of distance. She didn't yell. She didn't walk away. She didn't say a single angry word. She just sat beside him. and cried for the years lost, for the lies told, for the nights she felt unwanted, for the love that went unspoken in silence. He cried too, quietly, shoulders shaking, face covered. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was the first moment they'd ever truly been naked in truth, even fully clothed, and for the first time since 1994, the silence between them finally broke. They didn't fix everything. In one night, real pain doesn't disappear just because the truth finally shows its face. But that evening marked the first time in 10 years that they sat in the same room and spoke, like two people who shared a life, not just a house. The next morning things felt different, still tender, still quiet, but open. Michael apologized, not with flowers or dramatic speeches, but with honesty, the kind he should have given her 10 years earlier. "I wanted to be perfect for you," he said, "and the more I avoided it, the more impossible it became. I thought if I stayed silent, I could escape failing you." Elaine didn't respond with anger. She just nodded and said, "We'll only fix this if we stop pretending." And that became their unspoken agreement. No more pretending. They didn't rush. There was no sudden honeymoon reboot or forced intimacy. Instead, they talked. Awkward, slow, honest conversations that both feared for a decade. It took weeks before either of them tried to be physically close. The first time Michael reached for her hand in bed, she froze. Not because she didn't want it, but because the moment she dreamt of for 10 years felt unreal. He whispered, voice shaking, "I don't want to hide anymore." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't smooth. It was slow, hesitant, almost clumsy. But for the first time in their marriage, Elaine felt chosen, not avoided. She cried afterward. Not from pain, but from being seen. Michael held her like he was afraid she would vanish if he let go. And there, in the quiet darkness of a bedroom that once felt like a stranger's space, their marriage finally began, 10 years late. It didn't happen instantly. They spent the next 2 years healing through communication and slow rebuilding of trust and closeness. By year 12 of marriage, something Elaine once believed impossible happened. She was pregnant. When she told Michael, he sat down on the kitchen floor and cried into his hands, the same way he had the day he confessed his fear. They had their first child, a daughter, at the age most of their friends were sending their kids to middle school. 3 years later, their son was born. People always assumed they waited by choice. No one ever imagined the truth, that motherhood came after a decade of untouched womanhood. Her children were adults now, living their own lives. She and Michael still lived together, not as a flawless couple, but as two people who survived a silence that could have shattered them forever. They didn't erase those 10 years. They carried them quietly, like a scar under clothing, no longer bleeding, but never forgotten. Elaine often found herself thinking, how many women are hiding lives like mine? How many marriages look fine from the outside but aren't even real on the inside? How many secrets are born from fear, not betrayal? She never blamed herself anymore, and she no longer pitied the girl she was at 23. Instead, she spoke her truth, finally, at 55, because someone needed to hear it.